So, it's time for me to talk about Final Fantasy VII, the game that's had more praise than a fat kid on sports day, and it's in so many top 10 lists, you could probably stack them to the moon and still have a few left over. Being the worldwide phenomenon that it was, this title is a lot of people's first experience with RPGs, and because of this fact, a few things have seemingly gone over people's heads without them giving much notice to it, let alone praise, and that's how we get to the subject of this video. I don't want to talk about the game in its entirety, rather I'd like to concentrate on just a section from the game that in my opinion helped to suck people in regardless of their background in gaming. So let's take a closer look at what made Final Fantasy VII's opening special. Most JRPGs use a formulaic setup structure. It's normally a young person just living a normal life until one day a cause bigger than themselves is thrust upon them, starting the big adventure. I mean, this isn't all RPGs, but it's become an archetype within the genre, and most games have some form of this setup. As well as that, you're introduced to the world that you're going to be playing in, usually filled with mysticism and whimsy, until the event or villain comes along and turns things on their head. Then comes Final Fantasy VII. Starting with a disorientating low-frequency droning sound playing whilst you gaze at the stars, which in my opinion goes on for a little too long, but I guess it's building tension or something. But once it's finally over, we get our first introduction to a character, a girl. The RPG veterans may be asking themselves at this moment, is this the princess I gotta save? For moments later when the camera gives you a better view to reveal that she's just some random girl in a dirty alleyway with a bunch of flowers. This then changes the question to, who is she? And why is she the first person they've decided to show me? Once the camera moves back a little further, as the flower girl walks towards it, the world gradually uncovers itself, revealing the drab and dirty cyberpunk city known as Midgar. This isn't the king's castle surrounded by grass and forest that people are used to at the time. It was dirty and old and lived in, powered with some kind of energy that was pumping out of pipes laid throughout the industrial city, with Midgar Tower at the centre of it all, towering over everything that surrounds it, looking like a cathedral of modern machinery. Just from this intro sequence alone, you can already figure out a lot from the world that's been introduced. People here are not happy. Corporations are seemingly in control with the amount of advertising spread throughout the city. Pollution is rife with cars and factory fumes filling the air. But there is a glimmer of hope, and it comes with the song that's played behind it all. The music gives you a sense of mystery and wonder amongst the dirty dystopian city, similarly to how Vangelis' soundtrack pushes the emotions in Blade Runner. This also shows you that you're still playing a JRPG, and not any JRPG, you're playing the latest Final Fantasy. Nobuo Uematsu's sound by this point is instantly recognisable to long-time fans of the series. He has a very distinct sound and a very distinct way that he arranges his music. Then, all changes when the train arrives. The intro scene comes to a close, with a train pulling into a station with our cast of characters stowed away. It then manages to blend out the cutscene with gameplay as the two merge together. By today's standard this ain't a big deal, but back then it was revolutionary. A video and gameplay married together, not separated by load screens or transitions. Now our cast of characters are revealed one by one, introducing themselves by mopping the floor with the guards on standby. The innocent and reluctant person thwarted into the situation has been replaced by a group of angry and violent terrorists, Avalanche, with the player character, Cloud, being the newest member in their ranks, and an ex-member of Soldier, the enemy that they're fighting against. Normally at this point in any other RPG, you are tasked with talking to people to figure out what's going on, or who you need to see to progress the story. Not in this game. After just a couple steps, you're thrown into a battle, essentially making you run before you walk. Usually this would be quite jarring. Before the game's even shut the car door, it's got its foot on the accelerator. But in this case it works so much better than it should have. Instead of the game bombarding you with tutorials on every aspect of the game, it just throws you in at the deep end, right at the start. So before you even learn your character's name, you're learning how to battle with him and seeing what kind of things he can do. On top of that, like I said earlier, you're a terrorist. You shouldn't have a welcome mat laid out for you. Not only narratively is this a good thing, but also functionally. In the first battle, the amount of options is very limited, meaning there are only so many things that you can actually try. So getting to grips with the battles comes quick. This also keeps the tension of the task at hand pretty high and keeps the events flowing nicely. Shortly after, you're introduced to the rest of the crew, who all have their own roles to play that also feed into their personality. Biggs and Wedge are the type that care about the people and their surroundings, hence being on board with Avalanche's shenanigans. Biggs is the confident teenager with some technical know-how that will get his hands dirty if he needs to, whilst Wedge is the tubby shy guy with a heart of gold. Next up we have Jessie, the tech wizard of group, that also shows vulnerability with her clumsily falling over at the wrong time. More on that in a bit. Then comes Barrett. He is the leader and don't take no shit. He's the one pulling the strings of the operation and constantly at Cloud's throat to find out his intentions as an ex-employee of the company they're about to attack. You get to find out their personalities pretty quick in this small segment of the game that essentially just the group opening the door to the reactor, with the last moment of character building being a simple video of Cloud taking pause behind the rest of the group to look at Midgard Tower in contemplation before moving forward with the mission. These little character moments are scattered throughout the first mission and really give you a good sense of the world surrounding them. You get the gist of the political climate of the world and how it's affecting not only the inhabitants of the city, but the planet as a whole. They really drill in the importance of the task at hand, with it being made even more interesting with Cloud's reluctance to be charitable to the band of mercs, by shunning most of what they say with "I don't care" or "I'm only in it for the money" attitude, making Barrett increasingly more frustrated. It builds him to be kind of an arsehole at first glance, but then we get to see the other side of his personality, which is based on actions rather than words. As I said earlier, Jessie, the wide-eyed teen with a positive outlook on life, is pretty clumsy and gets herself into silly situations that could put not only herself in danger, but everyone else as well. This is where you get to see Cloud doing his hero things, with him saving her not once, but twice on the escape from the reactor that's set to explode. This shows that Cloud clearly has compassion for the people around him, even though he doesn't present himself in this way. He doesn't care for anybody's cause or goal for the future, but he does care about the people that the situation is affecting, and this feeling grows over time with the rest of the game. For such a tiny section of the total runtime of the game, it manages to convey so much with so little, and considering how basic the graphics look, it's amazing that you can take away so much without even having facial expressions or voiceovers. With the world being in the sad state that it's in, and the protagonist trying to fix it, you only really get two extremes of the situation. We get shown the problem, and then the would-be solution. But after all the battles and explosions, you're exposed to real people living in the situation who are affected not only by what the corporations are doing to the planet, but also the people who have to live with the repercussions of the acts of Avalanche. People are running around in a frenzy, not knowing what to do. But then there's the anomaly, a lone girl selling flowers amongst the ruins. In fact, the same girl from the opening cutscene. What makes this part great is it's completely skippable if you choose to tell her you'd better get out of here. You can either interact with the girl to have a conversation, or you can just get on with what really matters, the mission. But taking the time to speak to her opens a little dialogue tree that will later affect the game depending on the choices that you make. It doesn't really feel like it matters much at the time, but just taking a moment to speak to the girl will eventually lead to an opening of more side missions. But as well as that, give you another brief view into the world that you're playing in. The sight of flowers isn't common, letting you see the scale of the industrialisation in the city, which then opens up the question, how has this girl even gotten hold of flowers? Amongst all the technology must be an area where flora can still strive and grow. Meeting the girl in this also shows a stark contrast between the powers at play. Amongst the politics and oppression are real people living real lives that are just trying to make the best of a bad situation. The flower can be seen as a symbol of hope, that the planet that they're trying to save still has life and will overcome its slow death sentence. Not only that, but it shows that there are still people in the world that actually care enough for it, that they're willing to maintain and spread it to people affected most. After this brief encounter, it's back to the task at hand, in which Cloud gets surrounded by members of Soldier, to which he makes his escape on the passing train, marking the end of the mission. At this point in time, we've become used to hearing about terror attacks on the news. All around the world there's unrest for whatever reason. But one thing that you don't see many of these terrorists do is take action against the companies that are by and large killing the planet. Don't get me wrong, we have campaigners and protesters making noise about the environment, but you don't get people going into local petrol stations or power plants and blowing them sky high. Luckily it's not had to get to that point, as steps are taken to prevent the problems getting worse, like electric cars and whatnot. But in the game world, instead of using fossil fuels, the world is powered by a substance known as the life stream. This energy source is what powers the metropolis of Midgar, making the rich in the upper tiers of the city richer, whilst keeping the citizens of the lower tiers suffering. As well as oppressing the inhabitants of the city, it's also killing the planet. Similar to how our fumes are creating global warming, but they do it the other way around by extracting it from the earth, which is what's making it die. So Final Fantasy VII's opening puts you in the boots of one of these hypothetical terrorists that I'm talking about. The group that you're a part of wants to destroy each of the reactors surrounding the city, nullifying the company's abilities to harvest the energy from the planet. With this being the case, it's already a far cry from any other game at the time, let alone an RPG. Using the seemingly similar world, with similar problems to our own as a backdrop for the story, was one of the things that got so many people hooked. Gamers that had never before played an RPG or even a Final Fantasy title came to the game in droves for the distinct setting and tone that the game brought to the table. The opening cutscene wowed the public, from the dirty streets and alleyways to the loveless billboard that so many have become familiar with. This world felt different from anything people had played in before, but at the same time relatable. Rather than fighting against evil beings and monsters, you're taking on people that symbolically represent them instead. Swap out a demon trying to destroy the world with a corporation taking military experiments too far to their own detriment. Problems we ourselves are facing in one form or another. I think this is one of the reasons that makes the game stick with so many people still to this day. Final Fantasy VII is a landmark when it comes to games. It's arguably not one of the best games in the series, but it's still one of the most beloved. I mean, I've managed to make this video just about the first moments of the game based on this. It spawned a franchise of games, movies and merchandise that are still being sold to this day. With the remake on the horizon, this could potentially spark the Final Fantasy VII madness again. But I won't hold my breath for the remake doing the same thing culturally like the original did. To be honest, with each day I'm less and less enthusiastic about the remake being able to hold what made the game special in the first place. But with that being said, we'll have to wait and see what the final product or products from the way it's shaping up end up being like. What does this game mean to you? Have you even played the game? And what are your thoughts on the remake as well as what you think of the video? Give it a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel for more videos, join the Discord server if you fancy a chat, and I'll see you in the next video.